like to welcome you to BOI Meets Wellness, a podcast that discusses the complexities, celebrations, and challenges of building a wellness ritual as a BOI, a person who is born obviously incredible. You are now listening to BOI Meets Wellness with poet, motivational speaker, and wellness lover, Evolve Benton.
BOI, born obviously incredible, especially when you wear it pretty.
Hello, BOI Meets Wellness listeners, and welcome to fall. We appreciate your shares and celebrations of conversations that we have been having on this platform, and we appreciate the beautiful orange yellow tone that fall is bringing, and the yummy pumpkin spice and all the pumpkin bread, banana bread, all that stuff y'all bring into the office, even though I ain't eating all that right now. But we appreciate it. I love the smell of it. I love the amazingness of it. Don't forget to visit boimeetswellness.com today if you need to catch up on latest episodes or if you want to check out our resource page, because y'all already know we got the good for y'all over there. So y'all know in a couple of weeks we'll be shifting due to daylight savings time. So it's fall and we fall forward, which means that we gain an hour. If you're here in the U.S., if you're not, I'm not sure how time works in other places, but I know that we do have some international listeners, so thank you so much for your support. But don't worry, this resource, this wellness tip that I'm about to give y'all, it supports the world and it is sold internationally. Whether we gain an hour, lose an hour, I'm always stuck with adjusting and feeling unrested for a few days, sometimes even a few weeks, y'all. So this week I started rereading the book Sleep Smarter by high performance speaker, health coach, and author Shawn Stevenson. This book has literally saved my life, y'all. Shawn breaks down the cycle of sleeping, the times when you really need to be catching the Z's, right? Like, what are those jam hours that are really going to give you your bang for your buck when it comes to rest? What prohibits us from good sleep, and how to adjust our morning and nightly routines so that we can shift our sleeping patterns. Shawn is giving us all of the tools literally to sleep smarter. And I'll leave the link of the book in the bio of our show notes so that you all can check it out. It will also be on our resource page at boimeetswellness.com. But Shawn is such a talented, amazing person that you got to get into. He has the Model Health Show, which is his podcast, so make sure you check out that after you finish listening to BOI Meets Wellness. But his book, Sleep Smarter, that's the wellness tip I'm leaving for y'all, because I know we're jumping in the fall. Things around us are shifting, and we really want to make sure that we're getting the rest that we need and getting some high-quality sleep. So head over to boimeetswellness.com and check out that resource. This episode here features the talented investor and founder of Boi Society, Brooklyn Wright. I think y'all will really enjoy this interview because Brooklyn shares their journey, but also keeps it real about creating financial freedom in their life and how that is the main focus and strategy in the work that they do, right? Like, they're really trying to make sure that they're not working for corporate America and that the work is all connected to the larger vision of freedom. But before we jump into this interview, I would like to share with y'all one more wellness tip for this week, because I realize that everybody don't have access necessarily to the books or like books. But what we can do is try to drink more water, y'all. If you drink a gallon a day, then try to drink another half gallon. The average American is chronically dehydrated. So if you have access to clean water, please drink it. Water holds so much power in replenishing our organs, moving blood through our bodies, clearing thoughts, and stimulating the repairing of our cells. So if you got a glass of water next to you, I'm jamming with that. If you got a bottle of water next to you, take a swig. Let's continue to hydrate and take care of these amazing temples that we have. Thank you so much for listening to BOI Meets Wellness. Don't forget to head over to iTunes and leave us a review and let us know how you feel about this amazing work that we're doing. Now let's jump into this dope interview with creator, investor, and founder of Boi Society, Brooklyn Wright.
Yes, thank you, Evolve, for having me. My name is Brooklyn. I am an investor entrepreneur, definitely most known for my longtime creation of Boi Society, which is, just an amazing platform for queer people of color across the world. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. So can you tell me a little bit about you. So what are your pronouns and what brings you joy?
I answer to all pronouns. It kind of definitely depends on, your relationship to me. My wife will definitely probably use she pronouns, or daddy, of course. I go by, if you ask me, I will tell you in public that it's they, them. And then I also love a good he pronoun. So I'm a little bit all over the place. And freedom. Freedom is what brings me joy very intensely and very intentionally. And my whole world is, revolved around making sure I'm free and the people who are around me are as free as we can get.
Definitely. And speaking of freedom, what I really appreciate about you is that you're always, especially on social media, really pushing people to think about the lifestyles that they're choosing to live, right? And this concept that we don't have to necessarily like burn ourselves out, overwork ourselves. But if we do want to do that, then that's fair as well. But that there's this various lifestyles that we can kind of like live. So for you, what do you do to pay the bills, and what does that freedom of lifestyle look like for you, particularly right now?
Yeah. So to pay the bills, I really do a little bit of everything. I do a lot of business strategy right now for companies. Huge fan of entrepreneurs, especially women-owned businesses and conglomerates. So currently, if we talk about right now, my major ones is I'm helping run a co-working space for women in the middle of downtown called Sphere. And so I'm helping them with strategy and making their first $100 million process happen. I also run an entrepreneur mastermind. I'm a hustler from way back. So I've got a few, I try to keep my 7 streams of income. And, I try to just stay out of corporate life as much as I can, right? I hate the idea of working for other people. So I've spent my whole life figuring out how do you make money outside of the system, and how do you make money that comes in on a regular basis, whether I'm there or not there.
Definitely. So what kind of prompted you to want to live this lifestyle, and what freedom has it given you, and what freedom do you hope that it will give you in the future?
Well, I think I've always been odd. So I don't know that I've ever lived any other future, right? So, or any other lifestyle. I've studied money since I was real little, right? Since I was like 17 or 18. And I'm 37 now. So I have a huge sales background. I was the general manager of a car dealership. I've worked in Wells Fargo doing banking. I have always run side businesses, right? I started my first business when I was 7. I was the kid who was selling popcorn and Kool-Aid in the neighborhood, right? And so I've always I learned very fast, I think, that if I wanted to be free, right, that I needed to learn how to not exchange my time for money. And so it takes a long time, I think, to perfect those things and to get those right. And once it started working, I realized that, okay, I needed to figure it out and make it go further. And I'll be honest, like Boi Society was the thing that kind of prompted that. So I started Boi Society, I think like 7 years. It's about to be 7, I think. And I did that while I was the general manager in a car dealership. I was making over $100,000 a year, which at the time, what is almost 10 years ago, was actually good money, even in the Bay Area, which is still good money. But I was miserable. I hated it. I was working 60 hours a week. I felt that the dealership that I was working for was somewhat predatory. And I wanted freedom. And by that time, I had created this online magazine that was getting a lot of traction. And it was time to monetize that platform, right? So we started selling T-shirts. We started kind of just we knew a lot of brands at the time because it was based off of media. So based off of media and fashion. So we knew a bunch of brands. And so it was time to find ways to make this thing that had thousands of followers kind of work for us and become something that could be sustainable. And in doing that, it just taught me a lot about online marketing. It taught me a lot about sales through the internet. And that allowed me to start making money kind of in other ways. And so I used Boi Society to really study online business. We started using eBay to sell phone chargers. I just started to use the internet to make money. And I realized that like I would wake up richer than when I went to sleep. And that feeling is something that, becomes very easily, it easily becomes something that you want to do again and again and again and again. And so I've just spent a lot of time working that out and understanding that. And through that method, I started also training people to do what I learned how to do, and that was market, to brand, and to sell. And that led me to doing business strategy for other companies. It led me to really wanting entrepreneurs to understand, and really mostly creatives, to understand that we carry a gift. Like if you're a creative, you have the ability to create currency. Like no one else gets to do that. The government gets to do that through taxes. The treasury gets to do that by printing money, and then creatives get to do that by making and selling items or making things that they can turn around and sell. And so I think that's very unique. And I think most entrepreneurs are actually creatives. And so I like to talk to groups and communities about how do you do that? How do you do that now? Because the internet has changed our life in a way that you can actually make money doing whatever it is that you love, like and all over the world. Like this is a new discovery. You couldn't do this 15 years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I got into the internet at the right time, and it's been an interesting journey.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Congratulations. 7 years, man. 7 years of Boi Society. So if you could tell the audience, what would be one of your celebrations from Boi Society, and what has been one of like the challenges?
I mean, God, so many celebrations with Boi Society, right? Like I popped into the internet in a time where people like us didn't have representation that made sense, right? Like there were definitely pages and communities talking about queer people, but they were very whitewashed. It was very hard to see us. It was very hard to see masculine of center folks. And we jumped on the scene in a time where I think that it was pertinent. And we were there right as the fashion revolution started to happen. And so, you take the intersections of having a passion for a community and a group of people, with it just also being the right time, and magic happened. And so I'm thankful for the community. I'm thankful for the fact that I can walk into many cities around the world and I can know someone just based off of that community. So I'm grateful to just have served Boi Society and boys and queer people of color. I'm honored, honestly. And I think the challenge has been right now is discovering what to do with that privilege now, right? In a time where representation absolutely still matters. And then also we need representation to also have impact in a way that I think does need to impact our bottom line as people. Like I looked around and it was very clear that everybody looked good, but then I was wondering like, but are you good? Like as we show you a $1,200 suit, can you actually afford to buy it? Can you afford to actually buy a home? Are you and your new wife or your girlfriend or now your fiance, as all of us were starting to get married? I'm like, are we good? Do we have impact in jobs? Do we have impact in our money, et cetera, et cetera? And as I looked around, the answers were not overwhelmingly yes. And that just made me concerned. And so I'm looking at it now that if we have one of the largest communities of queer people to ever exist through the internet, how do I use that to actually build a community that can support itself, impact itself, and like teach itself and give itself access? And that's been challenging. I mean, I've been looking at that for 2 years and figuring out how to shift that scene and how to like really make that happen. And, that's the challenge. Is also, again, one of the things I'm really honored to get the opportunity to do.
Being here in the Bay Area, I feel like one of the challenging things is like kind of building community, because it feels like everybody is hustling, really hustling to make it. So my question for you is just, being here for a nice amount of time, what has been your survival tactics, or what are some survival tactics that maybe you can share with other folks who are, dealing with gentrification, dealing with the shift of wealth, the shift of knowledge as far as jobs? Because I feel like, if you were in retail or into certain fields, folks are trying to like create as many robots and transferable skills where we don't need human bodies anymore, right? Like we don't need people. So, and I'm seeing every day people being pushed out and moved out and not even being here anymore. I mean, even the Bay Area that I moved to, I would say 4 years ago, it doesn't look the same. So what are some of the survival, or not even survival, right? Because I'm really on thriving. So what are some thriving tactics that you would give to our listeners?
Well, I think we've got to start being able to provide access to each other. So I think this idea that we can be somewhat community, right, is not going to work anymore. Like we are only going to be as powerful as the network that we have, right? And so, I've made this thing called the intersection just so that we can gather people together for impact. And we're partnered with tech companies to help provide jobs. We're partnered with communities across the globe to help provide access to education and how we learn. So I think a couple of things that I've done is I'm a lifelong learner, right? So I am always looking at how do I follow the trends of what's happening in the world to make sure that I can be tapped in to grab pieces of coin from those places. So I make a little bit of money in real estate. I make a little bit of money in cannabis. I make a little bit of money in technology. And I do that by investing in people. And so I think you have to, always have your ear to the ground. You've got to always be learning. So I'm always taking somebody's masterclass, hiring some coach, listening to somebody's podcast. I'm constantly doing that. And then I'm constantly trying things out too, right? Again, we started out making money on the internet, selling cell phone cases. Actually, I started making money by drop shipping stuff over eBay. So we would find something cute on eBay, turn around and sell it on something else and have like a small upcharge of like $5 or $6. And that's how I got started. But because the internet is this thing that's always on and there's now 3 billion people on it, it makes your customer base super large. So I think we do have to learn how to use the internet. We do have to learn how to make a side hustle. We also have to be unafraid to keep a job, right? I've had hella odd jobs. I drove Uber for a minute. I did TaskRabbit for a time. I worked at Lesbian to Tech running their social media. Like I'm not afraid or ashamed to take a job that other people may not be willing to do. And so I think it's the combination of being able to work real hard, but then also knowing what your dream is or where you're headed and having a really good plan of how to get there. Right. I think we also have to stop quitting jobs. I hear so many people are like, oh, I just left my job to go run my dream. And I'm like, okay, but do you have a plan? Like, did you pay off your debt? Like, what does that look like? So I think it's the match of education, access, and opportunity.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So I want to shift the gears a little bit and talk to you a little bit more personally. One of the other things that I really admire and really appreciate that you showcase, not only on social media, but out in the world, is your love for your wife. And also the challenges that come with, marriage. And I think that, for so many of us, because, queer marriage was not even legal. Gay marriage wasn't legal for a lot of us, even when we were coming up. We've probably seen couples, but we didn't really get to see it in this massive way, especially with the internet. People to look up to, so what is some advice that you would give to folks thinking about, getting married? I'm about to get married, which I'm really excited about, but about just really trying to like maintain this lifelong relationship for as long as you folks have been able to do it.
Yeah. So the wife and I we've been married now, I want to say 10 years. She'll tell you the date that we've been married. I'll tell you we've been married for 20 because we've been together for 20. And I knew very early on that like, oh, I love this woman. And I believe in love. And so I feel very blessed to have a partnership with a person who believes in me and loves me as much as this person does. And I think the key to making something like this work is to be flexible and to believe in like forever, no matter what it looks like, right? So my wife and I, we have been together since I was 17. We have moved and lived in several different states. We've broken up several times. We've dated other people. We've done the poly thing. But what holds us together is this unconditional love for each other. There's nothing I can think that she could do that's going to make me not love her. Am I going to be upset? Are we maybe not going to talk for a little while? Are we going to like sit on separate parts of the couch? Possibly. But giving up isn't an option for us. And I think that serves us very, very well. Like, it's like, no. And I think you have to be careful that you've got the right person, right? You got to have someone who's not going to intentionally hurt you. You got to have someone who, you know, means you well for the most part. But I think if you have that part, then you just have a dedication to each other to work it out no matter what. And, you know, and to be flexible. It's been 20 years for us. And if, you know, biologically, you're someone different every 7 to 8 years. So this woman has actually been 3 different people on me scientifically. You know what I mean? And so I feel very blessed. Yeah, right. Like that's an interesting concept. And so I try not to hold her in any box, right? She's going to be different. Her hair is going to change. Her attitudes towards stuff is going to change. She didn't eat Brussels sprouts when I met her. She loves them now. You know what I mean? I just like getting to know her over and over and over again. And I think you have to understand that love ebbs and flows too, right? Like it's you fall in love with this person over and over and over again. And I think at times you fall out of love with each other too. And just know that that's all right.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you for that knowledge, and thank you for that visibility that y'all give. Another thing is when we first met, I remember one of our first meetings, you telling me about, you know, this really horrible accident that you were in, but really how supportive your wife was in that recovery. So can you share with the audience a little bit about the accident, if you don't mind? And what the recovery process was like, because yours was an accident, but I think that queer folks, especially as we're navigating different health concerns, but also just people reshaping their bodies in different ways, right? Really are taking these gifts of how others are recovering and using wellness to, you know, bring themselves back into the best health that they could be. So your tools are going to help that next person who might get in an accident, but also might just be going to get top surgery, right? And figuring out like how to bring themselves back to the strongest and most beautiful version of themselves.
Okay, I was in a motorcycle accident. Literally, it was 3 years ago in May. And when we're recording this is June. So literally almost 3 years to the date. So I was thrown from my bike at 50 miles an hour off the highway. They shipped me to a hospital in Marin County, which is in California, and they couldn't handle the trauma. So they had to helicopter me to Stanford, where I stayed in the hospital I stayed in like ICU for like 3 weeks, and then they sent me to a recovery place for almost 2 months. And then I was in a wheelchair for 9 months. I had to relearn how to walk. I had to have 4 additional surgeries after the first one. And it wiped me out, right? Like it wiped me out physically. It wiped me out financially. It wiped me out emotionally. I won. Yeah, I had my wife, which if nothing else, it proves how much I have to like love and support this person, because what they did for me was nothing less than a miracle. So I think it is important, again, I can't stress this enough, to just have a community around you of folks who care about you, who want to see you succeed and will take you unconditionally. And then there has to be a level of patience with yourself to become the person that you want to become, right? So it took 3 years. It took 2 years for me to even start to like really walk up and down stairs. I could move kind of quickly, and I got out of the wheelchair within the first year, but I had a cane for forever. I was moving slower. I'm still a little slower than I am, than I was before. But I always kept a vision for my life. And my wife and my community helped me keep that vision, right? I knew very early. So early on, they were not sure if I was going to ever walk again. They're like, look, we're not sure if you're going to keep your leg. Once they knew I was going to keep my leg, they weren't sure if I was ever going to walk properly. Once they knew I would walk properly, they were like, I'm not sure you'll ever walk. I actually do all of those things. And part of that is because I had a vision. I knew that I wanted to dance with my wife again. Like, that's something that we really like doing. And I couldn't see myself not being able to do those things. And so she knew I wanted to dance. I knew I wanted to dance. My community knew I wanted to dance. And so everyone believed in that. And so I believe in the power of the mastermind. And I believe in the power of community to hold space for you. And so I think that part is pivotal. Without that, I could have believed what the doctor said, and I probably wouldn't have a leg today. So I think, one, it's that. And then the other part, again, is just patience. You're not going to build the life you want overnight. It's going to take forever. Most people they overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in 3. And so I really do believe that, if we think of Glasgow, who is a guy who says there's a 10,000 hour rule. And it says in 10,000 hours, you can become a master in anything. And so if you do 8 hours a day divided by 10,000, it ends up being 3.5 years. So in 3.5 years, you can reinvent yourself to be anything that you want. I think people just have to hold a vision for themselves, and they got to give themselves enough time. And, with those, you can be self-made or born however you want to be. And I think that's the fun part.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I've been reading this book called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, personal growth, or something like that. John Maxwell, and he talks about how, oftentimes, because he knows his own personality, right? So he's like, that's the one thing, knowing your personality and not looking at it as negative, but looking at it as like, how do you adjust the habits to fit it? So he says how he's not really patient, and he always like thinks things don't cost as much as they do. So he always doubles up, right? And it reminds me kind of Nipsey Hussle's song, but so if he thinks something's going to cost 1,000, he'll save 2,000 for it. If he thinks it's going to take him 6 months, he gives himself a year, right? Like really being intentional. He's like, and if I finish it in 8 months, then that's fine, right? And if it only took $1,000, then that's great. I still have that money, I still have that cushion. So I really, really appreciate you talking about that concept of patience, and also that foresight that you already knew, right? Like you shifted your mindset before anything, and of course you were able to come back and be this amazing superhero, right? Because you really had that, and that tribe, and that community. So thank you so much for your vulnerability and willing to share that story, and just also willing to share your process with us as a community on how you've been able to heal. So my last question for you before we jump into our next segment, which is a little bit more fun, a little bit of a brain teaser, is what is your wellness routine, and what do you do to prevent burnout? Because I know a lot of folks look at lifestyles as like entrepreneurs, and they just think, oh, that person has it a little bit easier. And I'm always like, nah, man, I feel like entrepreneurs, as a person who has a 9-to-5 but also has a few side hustles, I feel like folks who are really like in that side hustle life and really trying to like push to make their dreams, like it's even harder, to me. So what are some of your like wellness routines or things that you do for yourself to make sure that you don't burn out and that you're able to show up in the best way possible?
Yeah, no, first of all, let's just say that I agree with you that being an entrepreneur, like a person who only works on their own freedom and only works on the money that they create themselves, much harder lifestyle. Definitely not one that I recommend for most people. I think most people are better off with a 9 to 5 with a side hustle. But either way, yes, extremely hard. And I totally agree. And I think for me, this has been the thing that it's taken me forever to learn, right? It's okay, you've got to have a real routine. Um, so I meditate every day and it's just for like 10 or 15 minutes. But I think that quiet time is one of the number one things that keeps me okay. Um, I think also too, I'm really learning the ability to stop, and that's to just rest, to take the vacation, to spend that little bit of money to like take the Airbnb and just sit still. I think as an entrepreneur, and really as an investor, as I keep going forward, we work so hard that you actually feel that you have to teach yourself to get out of the survival technique, right? And so part of it is I'll create something new, or I'll start a new business, or I'll do a new thing because I'm honestly afraid of stopping, because sometimes I'm scared that if I stop, the whole thing will fall apart. And so it's being able to just go ahead and give myself the autonomy to just sit still for a little while and to like not do anything, to put the internet down, to turn off the whatever, the notifications, the streams, I've got my phone dings every time a new sale comes through. So I have to like turn that off. And I just have to stop and sit still and listen to my own heart. And I think that's what really helps. I think burnout, I don't know that burnout is ever completely avoidable, right? Like you will, I think even like with athletes or whoever it is, you're gonna go, if you're really trying to make traction and build something for yourself, you're gonna get caught up with building so hard that you kind of overbuild, right? You pull a muscle in the process. And I think it's, again, knowing that may happen and knowing your own signs of when you're getting close, right? Like I now know that I will get testy, like I'll get a little irritated, and I can feel it. I can tell when I'm getting closer to burnout. And so I think it does come back to, again, like you said earlier, it's being able to know yourself and to think that all of your little nuances are your gifts. And how do you just use your gifts to benefit you? And so when I get a little testy, I know, okay, look, it's time for me to go ahead and sit by this Lake Merritt and do nothing for the day, and to be able to stop. And maybe I have to cancel a thing, or, I don't go out, or whatever that looks like, but being able to put yourself first and say, okay, guys, just for everyone's benefit, let me take the next couple of days and chill.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that, burnout is not always avoidable, but I think some of those tools that you gave folks is what they can utilize to get even out of the burnout when they get there, right? Because we get there and then we're like, I need the tools, I need my toolkit. And a lot of times we don't have it, right? Like we end up just starting more projects or just continuing to burn. And then that turns the quality of our work into something that we're not happy about, right? So it's like, it's not an even exchange. So Thank you for that. So the next journey we're going to go down is called Boy Talk and Hop. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. But before we jump into that, I wanted to know, how can folks get involved with the intersection? How can they get involved with you if they're hearing this and they're like, yo, I want to bring Brooklyn on my podcast, or I want to bring them out to speak? Because I know you've been doing a lot of speaking engagements as well, motivating our community. How are the ways that folks can get connected with you?
So Brooklyn Presents. .com is where you can reach me directly. And I'm using that platform to kind of put all of the little houses of things that I work on. And so you can send me a message there. We're on Facebook. It's our free community that you can join. And that one is the intersection somewhere. I don't know. Brooklyn Presents is probably the best place. And then you can always shoot me a DM or something on Boi Society. That always goes directly to me.
No worries. Go on and give that plug.
Yeah, Brooklyn Presents. It's like presents, but it's brooklynpresents.com, and it'll shoot everything you need.
Okay, cool. And we'll include that in the show notes just so folks can have easy access to click on that and get in contact with you. So listeners, make sure y'all check out the show notes for this episode so you can get in contact with Brooklyn Wright. I'm so excited that you're here. This is my favorite part of the show. I do like talking about wellness, but I also like to just see how the brain works as a psychology major. So this next section is called Boy Talk and Hop, and it's kind of like a fill in the blank. So I'm going to give you a phrase and you're going to fill it in, and we don't want you to think too hard. We just want you to say whatever comes, off the top of your mind. So an example of that would be, I love to watch. And I would say, like, I love to watch Pose. Like, that's something, that I'm really into right now. I'm loving the dance scenes. I'm loving the fashion. I'm loving the nostalgia. So we're going to jump into it.
Ready.
Wellness is
life.
Oh, my favorite film is
I Like It Like That, which is an old film from 1994. It just popped up on Prime. And I watched it recently and realized, this may be just a little bit toxic, but it's still one of my favorite films.
And what's the name of it again?
I Like It Like That. And it's like...
I Like It Like That.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. It's about like this group. It's about this woman and her relationship with her man, and they're living in the Bronx, and like her brother's a trans woman. Like, so it's all over the place, and it's built off of this, I don't want to use the word poor, but off of this served group of
under-resourced.
Yeah, thank you. Under-resourced group in the Bronx, and it's just one of my favorite movies of all time.
My favorite food is...
I'm trying to eat better, so I gotta I gotta say I don't know that it's sushi, by far sushi.
Nice. Where's that sushi spot you took me to in Oakland? We have to include that in the notes. The one with the sake. Yes, if anyone gets a chance to go out with Brooklyn, go to this sushi spot. What's the name of it, Brooklyn?
Yep, it's Coach Sushi, which is the middle of Oakland. And they serve this cheap sake that you can get $5.95 for unlimited sake.
It's so good.
Place. Yeah, it's a great
so
place.
Good. I always talk about it and I always tell people, but you got to go with Brooklyn because Brooklyn got the hookup. Like Brooklyn is going to get you that extreme, that VIP service. And you're going to leave full and drunk. Full and drunk,
And hopefully with some good conversations. So we're going to have some good combo too. But yeah, we should just take over the place.
The next one is more money, more
responsibility.
That's
I'll elaborate on that one, right? Like, so I think the reality is with money is the more money you have, the more money you're going to spend. I think money is attracted to people who are good stewards of money too. So it's like, you've got to know what you're doing with it. I think money's an energy. It's not actually a thing. And so it's going to come to you when you attract it and when you are becoming that person that deserves to have it. And deserves is a horrible word, but that person who is, built and relaxed and came into a way that comes. And I think once you also realize that you have more money, you also have more access and you have more opportunity to give to people who may not have access and opportunity. So I think it's a responsibility when you do it correctly. Nice.
Sex is
beautiful.
If you could spend a day with anyone and do blank, who would it be, dead or alive?
This is a good question. If I could spend time with anyone at this point, naturally I wanted to say Oprah, which is really lit. But I'm gonna actually go with Mark Cuban, and I just want to invest.
What project that he has going on would you want to invest in now? Like his team, or I know he does a lot with real estate as well.
Yeah, he does a lot with real estate, but right now he just made a deal with him and Arlen Hamilton are going to be working together. I think what he's learned on being on Shark Tank is going to be incredible. And he's also the guy who came from nothing, lived in a place with 5 other people and built it. So I like the idea of sitting with someone who has come from nothing to something, and is continuing to watch that grow. So I really just want to learn. I want to learn from that kind of person. And I want to know, like, what changes when once you start to have something, right? Because I also know that his privilege now is going to shift his perspective. So I want to watch that. And I just, I'm really investing in people now. And so I want to sit with some people who have done that and figure out, like, what are the little nuances that you need to know in order to do that well.
Nice. Last but not least, Brooklyn is
learning, right? Evolving. I found freedom. I know what it looks like. I've tasted it, right? I've gone now over half a decade, almost a decade of just being on my own. And so right now I'm looking at how do I financially make my life sustainable forever so that I never have to go back. And so I think that's just a really big learning and evolving process.
I love how you keep saying my name. It's beautiful.
That's why I adore you, bro.
Yeah, and I also just love seeing your evolution. You really like coming into not only yourself, but coming in to be a leader in this community. And I just want you to know that you're appreciated. I think that we spend so much time praising people when they either aren't here, right? Or they're in a place that is like not accessible to us, right? Like we praise them when they like so busy, like Lena Waithe, you know what I mean? But it's really important for us to see our rock stars in their evolution. So thank you so much for, stopping by the podcast. I look forward to having future conversations with you, and I'm just really thankful.
Yeah, let me say the same to you, right? Like you were around right when I was starting to make the shift, right? You and I have had some very interesting conversations in a time where I was very unclear about kind of where I was heading, where I was going. And so I really do appreciate you. I appreciate watching you. I appreciate watching you, propose to your future wife. I keep a good eye on you, even though we don't get to talk as much as I want to. So I appreciate you too, my friend. My name is Brooklyn Wright, and I'm born obviously incredible.
Thanks for listening to Boi Meets Wellness. Stay connected on and off the show by following us online at Boi Meets Wellness. That's Boi with an I. Until next time, go